Late last year, I picked up a new HX-2 Navigator from Hema. If you want to watch my first thoughts review, click the link here. Now, since then, Hema has released a new Wi-Fi reversing camera for the HX-2. And luckily for me, they sent me one to test and install on my shitty old Landcruiser. Before I go into the installation and the specs, I wanted to let you know how far we took the testing and the results. You see, at Camper, we're surrounded by, well, campers and occasionally caravans, and the Hema team wanted to know if the Wi-Fi based camera has the range to work on a trailer. The short answer is that depends on the trailer. So let's get into why. Before we do, if you want to skip to the installation in my old 100 Series Landcruiser, or you want to look at the starting and testing the Wi-Fi connection, check the timecodes below and skip ahead. You can see the camera still has a little Sturt desert dust from a recent 4,000k journey with a camper and a few caravans. It held up well. We had to wipe the lens after a few dusty roads, but that's to be expected. To test it, I added some cable lengths to the power lead and hooked it up to an Invicta lithium battery, which we stored inside the camper or a van hatch. What we found is that if you had a line of sight to the antenna, it worked for around 15 meters. But as soon as you had the body of a caravan in the way, it ran out of signal. Why would you hook one up to a camper? Well, if you're traveling solo and have a pop top like a Jayco Swan or a folding camper like our Opus OP4, it means less worry when backing into your spot, and you can leave it running to watch directly behind you or keep an eye on things like bike racks. For a caravan though, we couldn't get it to work unless there was a Wi-Fi booster installed on the van. And if you have a booster, you probably already have a Safety Dave camera fitted, but it is an option to retrofit. You probably will though need a booster. On to installing it in a four-wheel drive. The HX-2 reversing camera uses a small adhesive patch, which we found worked well, but for added security you can screw or bolt it to a surface, but you'll need a drill, some bits, bolt options, and maybe some washers. You might need to extend the power source, and some quality connectors and soldering iron would probably be a good idea. Obviously some heat shrink to cap it all off. We found we needed 1.25mm cable taps, which made life really easy, as well as some self-soldering connectors. Depending on where you mount it, and if you have to drill into the body of your car, you might want some Sikaflex to seal around any holes you make. You should find power from an accessory. Never feed constant live, as even though the camera draws practically no power at 200 milliamps, it could still drain your battery. In my shitty old Landcruiser, I'm lucky enough to have a 12 volt cigarette style power output in the boot. It's there to power things like fridges, and it's the perfect thing to tap into. Now, a lot of SUVs have these, so I'd say start there. But if you don't have one, you might have to find power from your fuse box and run it under the vehicle. If you do that, add some conduit to protect the cables. It's cheap from Jaycar. If you were being really pedantic, you could run an inline fuse, but as the power source I'm using already has a fuse, I'm not going to. As I have a Kmart spare wheel carrier, I can't mount the camera where I would recommend, above the number plate. So I'm going to mount it low, right above the drawbar, as I need it most for hitching up. For us lucky shitty old Landcruiser owners, we don't need that much. We only need these tools to put the HX-2 reversing camera in your car. To get to the cigarette lighter, I need to pull a few panels to the side, then it's easy. Handily, there's also a good factory earth, which I'll tap into. You really should put a ring terminal on an earth and bolt it in, but we're dealing with milliamps, so I'm okay just to tap it. Now, it's also a good idea to leave a good length of extra wire, just in case you need it. It's easier to trim it than to add it. To use a tap connector, simply slide the wire you're tapping power from into the device, add in the wire that you're trying to feed power to, and snap shut. It does pay to be quite forceful when snapping it shut to ensure the wires are being connected. For my mounting option, the antenna is going to be under the boot of the car, which is not really ideal as the body of the car is going to interfere with the Wi-Fi signal. Now, Hema claim up to about 30 meters line of sight, but we'll test it in a minute just to make sure it works. Before buttoning everything down, you'll want to test it. Grab your HX2, go to your Wi-Fi settings, find the Sonics camera and connect to it. Once connected, go back to the home screen, go to the camera button, and boom, you should see what the camera sees. Now is a good time to determine the range. At the very least, mount your HX2 on your dash to see if it works, and ideally load up your boot as gear may interfere with the signal. If it is a problem, you need to move the antenna to a better spot. High up with an open view to the HX2 is best. Mine is mint. I'm stoked with how easy that all was. It took maybe 2 hours including filming, and the results are great. You can get your HX2 reversing camera online or from outdoor recreational retailers for about $200.